Hi everyone, this is Laura. I've got a favor to ask our subscribers who receive the show via Apple Podcasts. Are you one of those? Would you write us a review and share that review on social media? It is our number one best way of spreading the word about the program. And you know that we appreciate each and every one of our subscribers, especially our members. You can become a member at www.lauraflanders.org/donate. And thanks. Here's our latest. Hi, I'm Laura Flanders, and this is The Laura Flanders Show, the TV and radio program that seeks to raise radical spirits by interviewing forward-thinking people with real-life models of shifting power from the few to the many in the worlds of arts, entrepreneurship, and governance.
Rural voters did what the last election? The working class? When our news is reported by people far away, we get a pretty wacky version of the truth, especially the reality in the South.
This is a very significant defeat.
There are no obvious takeaways from what happened last night.
You look at the popular vote, it's a wave. You look at the numbers, it's a wave.
More like a blue ripple.
That is a wave.
So, a blue wave? A Trump heartland? What is the reality about what is actually going on? For more than 85 years, the Highlander Research and Education Center in Tennessee has been leading the fight for social, racial, and economic justice, as well as equality, equity, and sustainability. So it is hard to find or even think of people better suited to setting us straight today than our guests. I am so pleased to welcome the co-executive directors of the Highlander Center, Ashley Woodard Henderson and Reverend Alan Maxfield Steele. It's always important for me, anyway, to try to check in with people who actually live in the South, because the stuff that you read and hear when you live in New York, it is never anywhere close to what I actually experience when I leave these parts. Yeah. And the fact that our media is so Northeast-focused and Northeast-centered is a serious problem. So, to back up a little bit, we are now in 2019. The future looks bright, of course, and full of challenge. But just to take us back a little, what did you make of the midterm elections? Was it a blue wave?
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah, I think it absolutely was not a blue wave. I think it was evidence of the incredible impact that Black women's labor can have on the world. That when we believe in a dream, that when we focus on not just catering to the center and the right, but we actually talk to our people and talk about how we can meet their direct needs, that they'll believe us and they'll throw down for us. And that even if we do all that work, the white right will steal an election over and over and over again.
So before we get to the white right and stealing, let's go back to that Black women's work. Because when I think about this coverage that we got of campaigns, like in Georgia, around Stacey Abrams, or many more, we hear that Democrats turned out their base, that Democratic activists, maybe led by women of color, but they turned out their base for this candidate that everyone believed in. Are you saying that that wasn't what happened?
What I'm saying is that, you know, if we look at primaries, right, the Democratic Party doesn't get involved in primaries, right? So who got Stacey to the general, right? Who found Stacey Evans to run against her? There's 159 counties in Georgia. Stacey Abrams won 156. She beat Stacey Evans in her home district. And it took Black women and other women of color saying we're committed to flanking and supporting the Black women that are running Stacey Abrams' campaign. And Stacey Abrams is a Black woman that we trust and believe in, and we value her leadership. But Georgia's only one of those stories, right? Even before Georgia, the Alabama race with Roy Moore and Doug Jones, right? Like that, the Democrats took a lot of credit for that as well, when what we know is that it was like Black Voters Matter. It was, the Ordinary People Society, Pastor Glasgow and Dothan. It was a multi-sector coalition of Black folks, particularly led by Black women and formerly incarcerated people that won that fight. If you look at Florida, Amendment 4 or Gillum, right? That it was this broad Black coalition, and then people that are of goodwill that believe in fighting anti-Blackness and fighting for Black leadership that came together and made the impossible possible. And so did Democrats show up? Maybe. But was that the reason that we saw these astronomical gains? Absolutely not.
Well,
that was
let's hear about some of the reasons why. I mean, you're well placed, Alan, both of you, to actually hear why people are doing what they're doing, not just see the pictures that we see of people in a line where we make assumptions about why they're standing there. What have you heard? Why did people get so involved, whether you're talking Andrew Gillum in Florida or Stacey Abrams or Doug Jones? What's the motivation?
I think people are hungry for something more, and more than what they've been getting. And I think people are remembering in this moment that there is a deep tradition of resistance in the South around a whole range of things. You know, whether it's Black liberation work, whether it's poor people's organizing, you know, a whole range of things that people are starting to like really collectively talk about again, in a way that has, I think, been silenced, it's been repressed. And I think, you know, like to your point when you opened up the conversation around media and storytelling outside of the, you know, people have been telling the story about us and for us, but I think folks are really getting excited to talk to each other in the South again. So that, I think, brings a level of inspiration for people to say, whether it's an electoral fight or whether it's something else, people are really wanting to get into creative solutions to the conditions that we've inherited in this moment. So I think people are really hyped.
Because it speaks to me, it speaks to me about what happens next or what we might see next.
Yeah.
You want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what many Southerners have been saying for a long time, right? It's not that Highlander in particular is doing anything new since 1932. It's that we're doing it to scale and we're doing it in innovative ways, right? So I think what we're hearing in the region is like, we have to have an electoral justice mindset. We can't afford, we don't have the luxury to not, like, to throw that tactic away.
So that split that we sometimes hear about between movement work, so-called, and electoral work, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and to be quite frank, the idea of the blue wave, right? It's like we're not just trying to build up a Democratic Party. What we're trying to do is build independent political power for our folks.
Now, is that just you?
No, I think that's the Movement for Black Lives. I think that's the Southern Movement Assembly, right? We have a whole tier of our work around building participatory democracy and movement governance. And so I think all of that is harm reduction. I think most of us are not confused that the state never has done a whole hell of a lot for us. I think what we are sure of is that we can't, though, afford to throw away tactics, right? When my elders and ancestors said by any means necessary, they meant by all the means, right? Everything in my tactical toolbox, because the state, the white right, those folks are using every tactic that they've got, right? So we've got to meet sophistication with sophistication, as Willie Baptiste says, you know? And I think that means that we have to have like an electoral justice project of the Movement for Black Lives that's got fellows all over the South and all over the country that are winning campaigns. It means that we're beating down the doors and like doing the harm reduction work in progressive policy land. But it also means building alternatives to the thing that's harming us.
This is the Laura Flanders Show. My guests are Ashley Woodard Henderson and Reverend Alan Maxfield Steele, who are the co-executive directors of the Highlander Research and Education Center, which is a social justice leadership training school and cultural center in Newmarket, Tennessee. The organization's been breaking the color barrier, shaking up the South, and organizing for electoral and just about every other kind of justice for almost 90 years. Visit our website to see video of one of their recent gatherings and the full half-hour companion to this program. That's all at www.lauraflanders.org. Also on Organizing in the South, you'll find our recent episode on Standing Up for Racial Justice and our special last year on the Southern Movement Assemblies, where we saw Ashley in action on a former plantation turned into a healing center. Fancy hearing us over your airwaves? We make the Laura Flanders Show available free to stations across the Pacifica Radio Network. If your favorite station isn't airing this show yet, can you help us reach them and help bring this program to your neighbors via the airwaves there? You can get more information by writing to me at info@lauraflanders.org. That's info@lauraflanders.org. Next, we'll look back at the history of Highlander, which started in the 30s, and forward to the latest initiative they're part of that's all about democratizing broadband. Ashley says it's all about what she calls remembering. But first, here's As the World Ends by TQX, featuring Gian Slater and Pete Miser from the album Global Intimacy, which was released on Extra Celestial Arts.
Looking for my people as I go, trying to find a landmark that I know. I can feel the ground as it's shifting all around. I see the world is shutting down and spinning slow. Who knows how to fly this thing? What good is the flyest bling?
When questions remain about what kind of pain a broken climate brings, we're struggling for survival, sparkling toward the
unknown. while the man is steady tracking me, Safari or Chrome. We scream and talk smack with the caps locked on, never stopping to correct the facts we might have got wrong. I'd rather win than be correct. I'd rather win than be enlightened. I'd rather assume the worst than understand just who I'm fighting. Adrenaline rush, touch screen. Isn't that ironic? We become more out of touch the more our fingers stay up on it.
So to go back to the history for a little bit, in the 1930s, when the Highlander Center was started, I think we have seen a real change in how we understand the struggle. Mm-hmm. And if you go back to that period, it felt like it was a very broad agenda. When you talk about building an independent movement, it was also about a broad building a new South. Mm-hmm. Not just maybe passing a few laws or getting a few people elected. Mm-hmm. And yet that seems to be so often what we've been sort of shrunk back down to, people on the left or with a critique of the right. Mm-hmm. Where do you stand now about where the lines of struggle are, and particularly on economics? I mean, in the 1930s, there was an economic agenda change in mind that has been kind of studiously propaganded out of our thinking.
I think that's real. Yeah, I think when we started, it was about transforming the social and economic order, and that's the same thing we're doing now, whatever we're inheriting. And I think that when you get into the question of what the role of Highlander has been to help people develop different kind of relationships and different kind of arrangements so that we could replicate the democratic practice that we're, lowercase d democratic practice that we're in this particular space toward, what it means to build a different kind of state or what it means to build a different kind of society. So I think that where the things are, kind of to your question around, like,
I'm just
what's
thinking, like
line?
the 30s, the Highlander Center had people from the Communist Party, had socialists,
Sure.
had organized parties of the left that have been studiously wiped out in the decades since. And the ideas of transformation have been radically changed in that period, too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel excited about this conversation because I think it's an opportunity to highlight some good stuff that I've been seeing. So, for example, the West Virginia teacher strike, right? So people would have said that was impossible.
Correct.
They definitely would have said a wildcat strike is.
For
right?
sure.
For sure. And they would have said that West Virginia's Trump country. Those people vote against their best interests. They, believe the myth that Trump is going to bring coal back. Their understanding of the economy is super backward. It's a monopoly, yada, yada, right?
Well, they're all white people. Don't forget that part.
They're all white people.
Only white people.
They're all straight white people at that.
Only straight white people.
And so look at what happened, right? And I think that what's beautiful isn't just that these teachers said enough.
In a non-union state.
In a right to work state, their young people supported, the families of those young people supported, the community supported. But then when the union sold out, if that's the narrative of what happened, they were like, oh no, that's not what we said we wanted, and they continued to strike.
We didn't just want a bit for us.
Right. We're talking about the whole economic infrastructure.
For the whole public infrastructure.
And so I think that tells us a couple of things. One is it tells us that everything that they're telling us about Appalachia, particularly West Virginia, under a microscope is not true. Secondly, what it tells me is that the conversations that I heard, especially from the young people that were getting involved in the strike, wasn't just oh, I love the Democratic Party. Or I love democratic socialism, quite frankly. It was my granddad was a UMW member, and I remember him going out on strike, and that's my legacy.
Mine was.
So even if they don't understand everything, all the details of why capitalism is terrible, why these other economic alternatives are more possible and better for them, what they know is that they're connected to a radical legacy of resistance that they're like what Alan said, they're literally remembering what's been stolen from them. And so I think that that's why Black people that were disengaged and not apathetic, but not hopeful about electoral work working, because quite frankly, it didn't. It worked exactly like it's supposed to keep them disenfranchised. They were like, but I believe Stacey, and my grandmama waited in line for 4 hours. Who am I to complain? Right? There's a literal remembering that's happening with a new generation of the stewards of the Southern Freedom Movement, and we're seeing that rise.
All right, so 2 questions. How the heck did you two get to be co-directors of the Highlander Center?
How did that?
Your first interview as co-directors. Yeah. Talk about it. Where'd you both come from? You have granddaddies in the UMW? What's this?
No, I come from salesmen and preachers and teachers and farmers and others. But No, I was politicized by the people's movements of Northeast Thailand. It was a study abroad program that I was on during college. We had an awesome opportunity to get mentorship from folks who were former student communist movement leaders in the struggle there.
The famous Thailand-Appalachia axis.
You'd be surprised at the connection and relationships in terms of the
extractive industries
and stories. I mean, it's pretty profound. So anyway, coming back to that, bringing popular education into my classroom when I was a school teacher in South Carolina, and then neighborhood organizing in former textile communities, brought me to Highlander through, I wanted to find more people who were doing this other kind of stuff.
And you found her?
Longer story. Yeah, I found her.
It was wild. Both of our first times to Highlander was at the same time, but we didn't meet at the 75th homecoming, which changed my life.
I think I was there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was everybody.
It seems like everybody was
everybody. When people talk about homecomings, they talk about
that one. Yeah.
It was a big deal, and under Pam McMichael's leadership, it was a really powerful weekend.
Huge.
We had Pam on recently talking about Surge.
That's right.
That's right.
Standing up for it.
That's right. And Southerners on the Ground, right? She's original. She's the OG, and so. We were both there. We both did programs that came up as a participant in workshops that Highlander was offering at the time, particularly around the leadership development of young people and making sure that they were making a strategic move to get young people in kinship with each other in a very strategic way that I'm kind of it's hitting right now that's actually what they were doing. And it's people that I clearly still throw down with, right? And so then we got on the board of directors. I bullied him into becoming the board chair, and then I got bullied into becoming the first Black woman executive director. Lovingly bullied, which people trusted my leadership in.
Kinship. I mean, the word is coming up a lot, and it's one of the things I think about with Highlander, too, in the sense that you see the rocking chairs are kind of a symbol of it, but people spend time together.
Yeah.
And they spend downtime, not just at the barricades, at the picket line time. Kinship is often built over things you share.
That's right.
Food. But you're actually sharing something else right now, which is interesting. I've written about, but I haven't seen it, which is broadband. Can you talk about that initiative, which I think also gets to this question of economic self-empowerment and building a new economic system?
Yeah, so there's a task force called SEED, the Sustainable Economic and Agricultural Development Task Force, that's based out of East Tennessee, and they had a rural broadband campaign that they started several years ago, and they had some legislative work that they were working on and really pushing hard. And then there was the question of infrastructure. What does it actually mean to build our own infrastructure around internet connectivity in rural Appalachia that there's all kinds of stuff you can read and write about around the lack of connectivity for folk. And so
intentional
lack, and then corporate control of what is available.
That's right.
So we built a tower on the property. We didn't make it ourselves. We ordered a tower, put it in the ground, and that tower then relays Wi-Fi connectivity down to our buildings, and we're in the middle of a real fantastic experiment around it. So leveraging our own infrastructure to support other projects that will come down the road.
I think what's real is we weren't just talking about rural broadband for the people. We literally needed. We also didn't have access.
And the people in the valleys around you.
That's right. So
will you eventually be able to offer it to them?
They're already on our tower. We have I think we've got about 60 folks or 60 residents.
And what's the price difference?
Oh man, it's significant, right? So I can just talk about Highlander.
Yep.
We were paying a company that, was terrible to us, to the tune of at least $800 a month just for the internet. 2 T1s, terrible service. And now I can lay in my bed at my house there and watch Netflix and answer emails and FaceTime my niece, right? It's changed what is possible, and so that's true for us. It's our tower, and so I think most people are paying to the $80s range to the company that's providing our backhaul, and so. Yeah, and we're fundraising to be able to support covering people's connectivity fees and that kind of stuff, so that all they have to do is make sure that they can pay it monthly.
Does it change the neighborhood, the community's feeling about Highlander? Because at various times in history, the people around Highlander have been sort of turned against you all, and we've seen that divide and conquer work many times.
Yeah, I think we're at the beginning of an experiment.
Yeah.
I think it remains to be seen, and I also think it depends on our commitment to organizing. It's great that Highlander is such place respected and revered by people across the country and the world. But if the folks in Newmarket don't know who we are, that says something.
And if you're coming in with cheap broadband, that might be a good way to say hello.
We've definitely heard some like, oh, that's those hippies up the hill that got that tower up there now.
Well, it's great talking to you. You've got amazing campaigns going on, and I hope that we don't wait for another 83 years before we catch up with what's happening in Highlander and the Hill.
Thanks for having us.
You're so welcome.
That was Ashley Woodard Henderson and Reverend Alan Maxfield Steele, co-executive directors of the Highlander Research and Education Center in Newmarket, Tennessee. In the TV version of the show, we feature a report on Highlander's community-owned broadband initiative. In this clip, you will hear from the main coordinator, William Isom, technologist James McKinney, and organizers Katie Myers and April Cherokee.
The Southern Connected Communities Project was born out of our residents' desire not only to bring broadband to rural Appalachia, but to also accomplish ownership, equity, and affordability. A wireless backbone is delivered 25 miles from the city of Knoxville to our tower via the public 11 gigahertz spectrum. Broadband is then redistributed to our communities using line-of-sight AC technology, provisioned through Ubiquity air fibers. The real power of our project, however, is the ability of our communities to own and understand this technology. In this way, this solution is a model for what a community-controlled broadband ISP could be in rural Appalachia in the South.
So currently we're getting backhaul sent to this tower that we have on site, and the tower is an 80-foot tower at the top of this massive hill, and then we put Ubiquity's rocket air system, basically sending signals to each one of our buildings, and we have, I think, 6 buildings connected to it right now. And then we capture the signal at the office, and then or whatever building we're in. Basically what that means is installing a dish, pointing the dish to the tower from the building, and then capture the signal and put it into a Wi-Fi router in the building. We're using Ubiquity's hardware to run all of this, and then we've used Unify, which is actually Ubiquity software, to basically monitor each Wi-Fi system in each building throughout the property. I would say on a normal day we get about 70-ish download speeds and maybe 40 upload speeds.
We don't get taught how a lot of these things work, like how our TVs work, how our internet works, how our lights work, any of that stuff, and so it makes it seem like magic. And people don't always realize that it's something like we can understand, and it's something we can operate. The goal isn't necessarily to do things the fastest possible way. It's to do it in the way that everyone is bought in and understands what they're getting into and wants it, and that it's a process of empowerment for everybody involved. So our role is to help people, not only to educate people as in just giving them information, but in learning with people.
My name's DJ Coker. I'm from Duff, Tennessee, which is like at the cusp of the Clear Fork Valley in Campbell County. Internet in my area is too expensive, and I'm not able to afford it. Owning our own internet, that's exciting. Having it in general is exciting too, but have the ability of owning it means we can control it.
We come to like the ideal of owning our own and having the line of sight over fiber because it's more cost effective, and owning your own provides jobs in the area. If the line falls, it's not going to throw the internet out for hours or whatever it takes to fix it. It's just more feasible for the rural area than fiber. When we started this over 3 years ago, it seemed more like a dream, like just an ideal. And after all our research and visiting other communities, and it's an attainable dream. It's one that we can make come true because we have the knowledge, we have the skills. They're very easy. We know we can do this.
It's not only in rural areas like Tennessee that people are taking charge of their own media. Here's a story we reported back in 2017 from Detroit.
If you're just watching the news you would probably believe that Detroit is totally blighted and that it has totally deteriorated over the past 50 years under the leadership of primarily African Americans.
Cecile McClellan, Director of Waterworks.
And at this point in time that the city is totally bankrupt, is over 18 million in debt, and that the city has to be saved from itself.
I think also part of the narrative has been that the city is coming back.
Monica Lewis-Patrick, co-founder We the People of Detroit.
And a lot of times what we have to educate people on is that we ask the question, coming back for whom? And then we also ask the question in terms of all of the blighted properties, where did the people go?
There's a lot of new development happening in the city, which is very new. It's happening rapidly.
Diana Nucera, Director, Detroit Community Technology Project.
And it's a little disconcerting, I think, to those that have been here for a very long time that have struggled without any funding, any support, and with a corrupt government. It feels as though the development is not happening for those people. The development is actually happening for a new tax base to come in and sort of pull us out of, our emergency management and our bankruptcy. The thing that's pretty intense about Detroit's connectivity is that 40% of folks don't have broadband, and then like 33% of those live below the federal poverty level, which means that even affording broadband is kind of impossible. The way in which we've addressed digital access and broadband adoption here in Detroit is through community technology. To do this work of community technology requires both community organizing and IT expertise. And so Anderson Walworth here and myself have been working on wireless networks, learning everything we can about them, teaching several communities, both here in Detroit, in New York, and around the world on how to do both the IT and the community organizing aspects of it.
So we're on the rooftop of Allied Media Projects.
Anderson Walworth, IT Coordinator, Detroit Community Technology Project.
This is one of our mesh routers, and the obvious thing it can do, if you hook it up to an internet connection, it will share it to the rest of the routers in the network. But another thing it can do is it can host local applications or local servers. So you could host anything from like a Minecraft server, or like we have an app that hosts local stories and poetry from the neighborhood that everyone can access on the network.
For me, one of the best ways of communicating and learning about what's going on is through talking to other people.
Diana Nucera, Director, Detroit Community Technology Project.
The Allied Media Conference is a nexus of that kind of sharing for us. Our role is to hold that space and to make it the most generative space possible for these types of critical connections and new ideas. I do think it's possible for media to model and really embody that type of exchange of knowledge across places.
People should constantly be thinking about, how do we create our own platforms? How do we get more of our stories out there? How do we show more and more people?
Paige Watkins, Detroit Narrative Agency.
I think it's about the infrastructure. Like, what is the current ecosystem that's available for all of this to thrive in? And is there one? And if there's not one, okay, well then how do we make that happen? Or how do we make that possible? How we plug in to maybe some other infrastructure ecosystem that's available? What does that actually mean and feel like and actually look like to do something that's collaborative and creative and successful? And what is success? How do we measure it? In the super long term, the end goal would definitely be to have these narratives be the ones that we're watching, the ones that people are seeing across the country and across the world, and the ones that they're using to refer to the city when they're talking about what happens here.
That was a taste of what's going on from Appalachia to Detroit as residents of places that are poorly served by the big cable companies democratize their media by taking control of their internet. You can watch the special report in full and find links to more information about all my guests, as well as Highlanders' next reunion or homecoming later this year. That's at www.lauraflanders.org. And while you're there, sign up for our newsletter to receive information on all our web exclusives, events, and more. This show is produced by yours truly, Laura Flanders, with Monica Mohapatra, Charlotte Carpenter, Nat Needham, Natasha Gaspar, Jeannie Hopper, Joanna Pinto, and Dominic Marcella. The Laura Flanders Show is made possible from the Novo, Ford, Tomcat, Cloud Mountain, and Fonda Foundations, as well as by listeners like you. So thank you. Stay kind, stay curious. Until the next time, I'm Laura.